Clinton!
What's up, man? Yeah.
What the f going on?
Huh?
I thought you was in the slam.
Man, I was. Good behavior.
Ooh, let me form your
New man, that's right, man. I need a new whip, man. Sonny,
Got some dough?
I got something better. Marie, come over here, man. You got some scissors?
Yeah, I got a pair of scissors.
Well, my lady friend here is gonna lay a cut on you that will blow your mind, man. Make you totally sexy.
I'm already a sexy mother.
I'll make you more sexy, man.
Oh, man.
Chop his head up good.
Yeah, I got it.
So here's John Turturro joining us. Are you in Brooklyn, John?
I am. I'm quarantined in Brooklyn. Yes, I am.
What do you see out of your window, sir, this morning?
Oh, it's a sunny day. There's a couple people on the street. I didn't have to go shopping today, so that's good. and keep my 6 foot distance from people. You know, people don't understand what 6 feet is, and they kind of come running right into you. So it's a little bit of a choreography on a daily basis.
That's
you know?
right. And it's pretty bad out there, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, we're I guess one of the epicenters of it. I mean, you know, I live near a park, so I could go into the park with my dog, you know, to walk the dog, you know. But still, some people are just very aware of each other spatially, and some people are on their phones. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, looking down as they head right into you. So
I should say I'm Simon. Mark is he's about 300 miles away, but he's in a cupboard under the stairs. But you've done a thing with him on stage. So say hello, Mark.
Yeah, hello, John. You probably won't remember me, but I did an onstage with you at the British Film Institute in the South Bank in London for the premiere of Romance and Cigarettes. I interviewed you on stage about.
Okay, yes, I do. I do remember you. Yes, I do.
And if you,
yes.
I think I'm right in saying that Kate Winslet's mum and dad came along to that.
That's right. Yeah, and her sisters. That's right.
That's
and
right.
Her sisters too.
You were worried or not about whether or not they liked the film, whether they'd get the film dig, and they did very much. And that was, but it was, that was.
I loved it. Yeah, I was like, whoa, okay.
So just before we get on to talk about the movie, just a few minutes ago, John, we were talking about intermissions, and some people watch it like having an intermission. Some people having a forced intermission because it gives them time to go and think about the movie. Then they come back a few hours later because they've been watching it on their phone or something like that. Do you like a film with an intermission, or do you find that annoying?
Well, I mean, there used to be intermissions with those big epics. I think Ben-Hur had an intermission, and Lawrence of Arabia had an intermission. You know, so it depends upon the length of the movie. Not if it's a great, you know, comedy that's 90 minutes long. No.
What, like yours?
Well, yeah, like I don't think you want to have an intermission in a comedy. No, I don't think so.
No. Okay, so we've already just heard that.
If you have to go to the bathroom, yeah, I understand. So then it's better to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, but our standard thing is go to the bathroom before it starts. Don't get up halfway through the movie. That's annoying.
No, but John is right with those big epics. You know, when it was Ben-Hur or whatever it was. I mean, as I was saying, even 2001, there was that intermission right in the middle of 2001, and it kind of it was assumed that people would they go and use the bathroom, but I think also it was assumed that people would then go into the foyer and go, "What's happening? Who's the guy? What's the thing? What do you make of it?" And then go back in and watch the second half of the film. You know.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the joy of a collective movie going. You know what I mean? You're watching, you feeling different people's reactions to it, and sometimes you do talk, you know, to people, you know, afterwards or whatever. And you know, when you watch it by yourself, you don't have that feeling of, you know, leaving the theater and you're seeing everyone online and you've experienced it, or vice versa.
Anyway, it occurs to me that you haven't got up to do some promo for your movie and then to sit in talking to a couple of British guys and then talking about the intermissions.
Yeah, that's fun. Yeah.
So we've played a clip from the Jesus Rolls. Just that's like the opening. That's the opening scene. So the Jesus is out of prison. Just take us into the story here, John. Just pick it up from that little clip that we heard.
Well, he gets out of prison. They steal a hairdresser's car. They don't know it's a hairdresser's car, and then they just take a joyride. They bring it back. and the guy catches them, and his cohort named Petey, played by Bobby Cannavale, gets shot, close to his testicles, and then they jump in the car with the girl who's the shampooist, played by Audrey Tautou, who knows the Jesus, and they go to their friend's kind of car. He's a mechanic. He's got all these old cars there and junkyard to change cars, and that's J.B. Smoove, who plays the mechanic, and then they change cars, and they go, and then he takes them to a doctor.
So, for younger listeners, John, just introduce us to the character of the Jesus and where he's come from. What are we looking at here? Who is this guy?
The Jesus originally was created, or a lot of the character was created in a play on stage, and that kind of bled into the Jesus in The Big Lebowski, and so he was this, bowling, I guess, the competitor of the Dude and Walter, and had gone to jail, being accused of being a pederast, and in our version of it, we see that he was framed because of the size of his genitals, and then it goes from there. I mean, ours is kind of inspired by an old French film, Les Valseuses, by Bertrand Blier, and I kind of took certain things from the book and from the movie, and it's kind of a road movie and about people, living in the moment,
yes,
with no thought of the future or the past, and they're not really. They're kind of they're stupid guys, but they're also curious about the opposite sex and trying to understand what they're so attracted to.
So
that interested me.
Yeah. So just one more question from me before Mark chips in from his Harry Potter style cupboard under the stairs. Do you think it's right to say that the way you've described it, it's not necessarily the kind of Lebowski spin-off that people might have been expecting? People might be surprised by this movie.
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely you'll see the Jesus in a much more complex way than you saw before. I mean, the thing that they share is that the movies are both about classic underachievers, guys, living in the moment and who lack ambition. But ours is more of a sort of about how these people form a little family while they're on the run and living on the outskirts of society or in the margins of society.
So, John, tell us a little bit about the relationship to Les Valseuses, because obviously Les Valseuses is known by some people as, I think it's in some territories it's called going places, but the French title Les Valseuses means waltzers, which is a French slang for testicles. So the whole thing about the whole thing about that film was, it had this kind of deliberately vulgar sort of confrontational edge. So how much are you taking inspiration from that, and what are the elements of Blier that you're bringing into your movie?
Well, I like the unconscious comedy about these guys. There's no hypocrisy to them. They're kind of like rough, gentlefolk in some ways. I mean, that movie is way more edgy than mine because it was made at a different time. But there were things about how they sometimes were maybe unconsciously generous, but the sort of celebrate sort of the generosity of the powerless. They're powerless guys. They're very young. I asked Blier, could you do it with older guys? He said, yes, as long as they're stupid and they're interested in the opposite sex. And I think the idea that they want to give, pleasure to people, and they're not really selfish about that, and that everything is sort of shared, there's something about it that I liked. A bunch of Blier films, also Get Out Your Handkerchiefs, too. They're always about trios, and I think there's something interesting in that dynamic. But I liked the generosity that was in there and their curiosity. I didn't really kind of go along with I didn't want to kind of go down the road of the brutality, that they were much more edgy, than we are. But it's a different time, and it's not really my sensibility. In movies, people used to get slapped all the time, in the 40s, if you look at movies in the 50s. And, people don't really do that now. So, but I took the spirit of it, I think. And there's something that's really, there's a spirit of anarchy in the film. And, and sort of, it doesn't have the duplicity of the bourgeoisie. The bourgeoisie do all these things, and then they do terrible things behind closed doors. And these people are, really honest about what they do.
In terms of bringing the Jesus back to the screen, how did the conversations go with Joel and Ethan Coen, who of course made the first one, and Universal? Was that tricky, or was it straightforward?
Well, Joel and Ethan and I talked about doing some kind of, maybe not spin-off, but companion piece to, with the Jesus. And they liked the idea, but they didn't want to write it or anything. And when I came up with this idea, and I didn't think about the Jesus, but then I kind of stumbled onto it doing a reading of it. They thought it was really good because it was its own thing. And they said, listen, you're taking an old French movie, a character that you really created on stage that we kind of stole from you or took a lot from it, and now you're taking it back and doing a remake of it. And they found it's kind of made perfect sense in their minds. So, and they liked it, that it was its own thing, but that there was a spirit that was shared. And but then they helped me go to Universal, and that was I think the longest negotiation of my life to get permission. Yeah, it was. I have to pay my lawyer for over like a year and a quarter, to get the rights to it. Yeah, because they had all kinds of, demands, and you couldn't do this, you couldn't do that, with it, and I'm the only really person who could play the Jesus. You know what I mean? It's not like, a superhero, So anyway, eventually we agreed.
As a filmmaker, you have a fondness for bawdiness. I was just remembering that when Romance and Cigarettes came out, which was a musical, but there's a lot of kind of sexuality in it. And I don't know whether you remember this, John, but on the tube trains, on the underground here, the poster for Romance and Cigarettes was censored. They had to put these censored bits over it because they thought it was too racy for the time. You've always been...
Well, it was because it was Kate's boobs that were full of. She was breastfeeding her little boy at the time, and they were really. And it was a woman who chose that poster at United Artists before they were bought by Sony. And I just think that sex in movies is so, especially in American movies, is so stunted. It to me, it's really stunted. And I'm interested in what goes on between men and women, of all ages and of all sizes.
You must be, however, one of the only people to have directed himself in a sex scene with three people.
That's right. Yeah, and Fred Elms, the cinematographer, was very helpful too. I mean, these scenes, first of all, this is before you have an intimacy coordinator, which a lot of people now have. But I think I understand why they have them, because you want to make people very relaxed, really comfortable. You want to show them exactly what you're going to show, what you're not going to show. And also, I think a sex scene has to be a scene, and it means there has to be an obstacle. It just can't be people, simulating, sex. Yeah, you have to have a problem, in the scene, and it's really, and you want people to be very relaxed, and also, in a situation where it's basically choreography. That's what it is. It's choreography, and that, it's what you show and what you don't show.
What fan reaction have you had? Because people feel so passionately about your character and the whole Lebowski sort of story that came with it. What have the fans been saying as far as you know?
People really have been enjoying it. They've been surprised, and I told them it's not a sequel; it's a companion piece. And people who know the Jesus and who don't know the Jesus, I think there's terrific performances by Audrey Tautou and Susan Sarandon and Sonia Braga and Bobby Cannavale, and Pete Davidson, and it's they've been pleasantly surprised, and I think it's a fun movie to watch right now. I'll tell you. I think.
Can I ask you, when you look back at your career? I mean, I still think. I mean, I look back at Barton Fink, and the first time I ever saw Barton Fink, I thought it was the scariest horror movie I'd seen because it was about writer's block. Are there key roles that you? I mean, obviously, you have a great fondness for the character of the Jesus. Are there other key roles that you think I still carry some of that with me?
I don't know if I carry it with me, but I mean, I've had some good collaborations with Joel and Ethan, with Spike Lee, with Francesco Rosi. We did the Truce, which is based on a Primo Levi's second book, with Redford, The Night of. There's a lot of parts that I've felt that I felt good about the finished product, but I don't usually carry it with me. No, I think what you learn is you learn how to be more economical, and I think it's one of the few professions where you can improve. You can improve.
What was it like working on the Transformers films?
That was a different thing. That was like playing with my kids. Like, when you have little figures and you play with your kids, you have to kind of get into that spirit. It's more like a sketch than an oil painting. You know what I'm saying? And that's what it is. But a sketch can be fun. It can be fun, and it can be fun to do. And you try to find the right spirit. I find it kind of exhausting when it's all over.
Yeah.
So that's not where I live. You know what I mean? That's not really. But I can know lots of parents who've watched those films with their kids, and maybe I gave them something to laugh at. So but it's a different kind of work, a different kind of comedy too. I prefer things that have everything in it.
John, at the start of the program, before you joined us, we were talking about the cinemas being closed and how long it'll take people to get back into the cinema-going habit and so on. I know this is speculation, and obviously, particularly where you are and where we are, there's a lot of other things that matter so much more than this. But do you think this will change the industry at all? Do you think?
I don't know. I hope. I'm sure people will want to go back. But I think everyone will be a little bit maybe hesitant, to congregate. But I think, that's human nature, is to congregate, whether it's in a theater or a church or a movie theater or, a AA meeting or whatever, and you can feel it now, just a few weeks in, the loss of that, There's only so much that you can be isolated. Even if I watch a great movie, it's nice to see it with other people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think we do need each other.
And do you think that when we come out the other end of this, do you think people will go back to the cinemas?
Well, I hope they do. I think they will. But I'm sure everyone will be a little bit more, at first, maybe a little more nervous and, aware of who they're sitting next to. I don't think it'll just be like immediate. All of a sudden, people will return. But I think, when you have a great theatrical experience, that's something that that stays with you. And the same thing with a great movie-going, experience too. And we've been, movie-going has been affected by all the streaming and everything. So, but I really hope that doesn't go away.
John, we appreciate you spending some time with us today. Thank you very much indeed for joining us from Brooklyn, and stay safe, sir.
You too. Stay safe and healthy. And it was a pleasure to speak with both of you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
John, thank you. Thank you for your time.